Okay, how we doing?
Hey, Matt.
You guys are awesome. Here we go. It's 11 o'clock. You guys aren't even awake yet? Let's go. Get some coffee. Let's
It's
roll.
early. Is Jake Rudock your leading candidate for the number 2 quarterback job? And if not, what do you need to see from him to grab that position?
Yeah, well, I think, we're still in the mode where we're evaluating everybody. Everybody on the team right now is still getting evaluated from that standpoint. And Jake and Matt are, obviously out there doing everything they can to show us what they can do through the preseason. So, we're still taking a look at all that.
What did you like so far from Jake? What has he done exceptionally well?
Yeah, I think so far for Jake, what he's done really well, I would say, is, the way that he's attacked the approach to learning the playbook even at another level this year has been great. His study habits are unbelievable. He has good questions in the meetings, really does a good job. There you go. Nice job. Does a good job there of, again, just trying to really learn the offense from that perspective, and then also on the flip side of that, learn more about the defense. That's part of it as a quarterback. As you kind of gain years through the course of the league, you see different coverages, different schemes, different ways that maybe teams play your skill players. So all of that, it's really important for him to learn. And then out in the field, I thought he's done a really good job with, he's been put in some tough situations. I think his composure has been really good out there as far as his ability to lead the offense and really kind of control the situation. So those are all been really positive so far.
Coach, you touched a little bit on Eli Harold the other night after the game, but here's a guy who said 3 head coaches, 3 coordinators, 3 sets of position coaches. How much do you look at all of that to see where his background fits with you?
Sure. Did you say Eli Harold? Who'd you say?
Eli Harold.
Yeah, Eli Harold. So, again, I think Eli, when you look at a player like that on film, there is a little bit of the how many different coaches have you learned, how many different schemes, how many, different ways have you been asked to play the game. There's certainly a big part of that. But for the most part for us, it's kind of really looking at the basic fundamentals of it, And I think, again, like I mentioned the other night, this guy who's got great leverage. He's really long, does a good job with his punch and his strike. And you can really kind of see him use that leverage to his ability, especially out on the edge. Now, he's also really good, showing some flashes in the pass rush game too, which is positive from that standpoint. So we'll see what that looks like when we get him in. But you really look at just what are the traits that he has, as opposed to, how many different schemes has he been asked to learn. I think that's always a little bit tough to evaluate, especially when there's been transition like that.
He's a guy who took a knee for the anthem the last 2 years. He hasn't so far this preseason. Doesn't matter to you what he does.
Sure. Again, we're not talking about any anthem issues or anything like that. We're evaluating a guy as a player and everything like that. It's important to us is what he does out in the field.
Hey, Coach, another guy you put in a difficult spot was Frank Ragnow. Just curious what you saw after digesting the film from him and Ray Guard.
Yeah, I think, again, I think Frank, we've tried to move him around a little bit here through the course of training camp and through the spring. But I think in the game, it was good to see him transition. It's not as easy going from a left-handed stance to a right-handed stance as you would think. Your sets, your technique, your weight distribution, the way that you handle some of those different protection schemes it's different. It's just completely flipped. So it was good to be able to see him actually transition with that. I thought he did a good job there. I think there's definitely some things technique-wise that he has to keep working on from that side of the ball. It was good to see him with some good competition over there too, and kind of let him also see a different level of, I would call it, speed and competition that as we go through the course of the preseason will be week in, week out. Those will be the level of the guys that we see. So I think that was good experience for him from that standpoint too.
Hey, Coach, now that there's not a cut down before the last game, is there such thing as having too many guys around? Because you pretty much are going with, the guys you're trying to get for that bottom part of the roster. And then on the other hand, other teams not being able to cut guys that you might want to look at too. So from a coaching standpoint, is it a good thing or bad thing when they're doing it?
Yeah, good question. You know what? I think in my years and my experience before, I would say this point of preseason, sometimes that kind of handles itself. There's just guys that aren't able to be out at practice. I'd say we're in a fortunate situation currently with as many bodies as we have practicing right now, and that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned. I think it's also can get a little bit tight if you have it the other way where there's just not enough healthy bodies to be able to go out there and execute. I'm all about competition, so I love having those guys out there. I love having the competition and seeing everybody compete and, being able to evaluate them. It's not just the game, it's also the practice time. So, we'll have a good couple days of practice here to be able to take a look at some of those guys and give them a chance also. So, I'm glad that we have the extra guys.
You've talked about evaluation a lot over the last few weeks. You've talked about evaluation a lot over the last weeks. When you bring in a guy like Eli Harold, how much of that evaluation is done before he gets here, and then you kind of say, I have a role for him, versus maybe him being in a really short
Yeah.
window to get any sort of evaluation?
Sure. I mean, that's definitely a tricky thing, and that happens through the course of the season also. You know, when you bring guys in and you're looking at maybe a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday practice schedule. So you have to do a good job with the evaluation and see something on tape that says, okay, there is a certain skill set there that you like, as opposed to looking at scheme where you're not really sure from that standpoint. So you really try to evaluate what's the skill set that he has that I think I could use that would benefit us, and then try to get him into those situations as fast as possible so you can evaluate him in practice. You know, we have a couple days here to be able to do that, and then the game and things like that. So, but you're right. You do have to have a little bit of a plan when they come in as far as, you know, what exactly did you see that you think he would be able to do for you, and then try to put him in that role as fast as possible to see if that's true or not.
Does that put him more at a disadvantage or an advantage when it comes to obviously trying to make the roster?
I think I've seen guys take, you know, it goes both ways. It just depends on the individual, really, to be honest with you. It's everything is about the opportunity that they make with it from that standpoint. And, you know, he's like a lot of guys that we bring in, you know, those guys dive right into it right away. They understand that they're maybe behind a little bit on some of the terminology or things like that. So they try to do a great job of you know, executing at the highest level they can. Bless you.
We've seen it here recently with Kerry Hyder, where a fourth preseason game performance can really thrust him over the top into that final 53. Do you have a instance in your past where a guy really impressed in that final preseason game that was the moment that I guess won him the job, put him over the top?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's been a couple guys I'm trying to think of. You had mentioned that, and I think Dan Klecko's name popped in my head real quick there, but, you know, way back when. But I think those are, you know, these are great opportunities. Every single day of practice is a great opportunity, and every opportunity to get in a game and show us that, you know, you can do it when the lights come on is obviously critically important. So there's probably been numerous examples through the course of the years. Just, you know, that was the first name that popped into my head.
We haven't seen Deshaun Shed the past couple of exhibitions. Is there any insight you can provide into?
Yeah, no, nothing from really an insight standpoint. Just you know, working hard to try to get out there and improve and you know, get himself to the point where he feels like we can put him out there in a competitive situation and he can perform. So just kind of day by day right now.
What about Wilson? What happened to him?
Again, just, you know, we're not really going to talk about specifics of injuries, so you know, we'll progress him along day by day too.
Wait to see Chad Meredith out there in game action. Just curious what you liked about him when you first brought him in and how you thought he played this handful of snaps the other night.
Yeah, good observation there too. I think Chad, very long. You know, he's a long guy. He's got, again, you know, length. When you start talking about those types of positions there on the edge is something that is good to find when you can find it, you know, and I think he's a versatile guy, a guy that can play on the ball, off the ball, very smart, athletic, has some pass rush ability, and also has some special teams ability. So it was really kind of the biggest thing for us the other night was to be able to evaluate him as much as we could in those situations when they came up. But I'll say also last week in practice, you know, there were some good points in practice where he did a good job for us and giving us a particular look, but also when he was asked to go execute the things that we were asking him to do on special teams and defense, where I thought that was positive.
Another guy, Cam Johnson, you brought him in this offseason. Didn't get a chance to play last year, had a little bit of an injury situation early in camp. Seen the reps kind of tick up. What have you seen from him in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, it was good, obviously, to get him out there and, you know, see that improvement in his guy's obviously an experienced player, understands the game, so that transfer of knowledge has been pretty good as far as that's concerned, and is really, you know, from his standpoint, a guy that, again, does a good job of setting the edge, can play with his hands, can get separation, recognition of what the offense is doing is a positive strength for him. So some of the adjustments and things like that we have to make, his anticipation of those plays or those looks are at a very high level, which allows him to play faster. So, you know, that's all been really good. He also has a pass rush skill that we like, that we've been trying to take a look at from that standpoint too. Being able to come off the edge, you know, and rush the passer a little bit. So just continue to take a look at that and evaluate that, but definitely the same kind of similar skill set as some of these guys we've been talking about, to be honest with you.
One more question.
Good. How was drop-off today? How many kids here at school?
No, we're just trying to get ready for the game. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.